Welcome back to Global Eye. Thanks for staying with us. Our panel on deck. But before we get started, let's take a listen to Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Of course, we did not ignore the situation around Ukraine. We believe that many of the provisions of the peace plan put forward by China are consistent with Russian approaches and can be taken as the basis for a peaceful settlement once they are ready for that in the West and in Kiev. However, so far, we see no such readiness from their side.
All right, our panel still with us. Journalists Nick Kolohian, Alexander Pevsner, lecturer on China at the Lauder School of Government, and Tommy Steiner, a policy director at Signal. Nick, let's start with you. 30 seconds on the clock. How serious is the Chinese peace plan when it comes to Russia, Ukraine, if at all?
I think it's a serious plan because actually this is the only plan right now that one of the powers or big countries suggested, and China saying that they should go and speak between themselves and stop this war and reach agreement, and this is as simple as that. People just need to stop fight and start talk. So yeah, for me it's a really serious deal and really serious proposal, because right now people just fighting each other.
Alexander, same question.
It is serious, but it's serious in the sense that he wants to present China as a responsible stakeholder and a peacemaker. I don't think it will bring peace, because basically, I mean, there's no mention in any of the Chinese documents of a reversal of Russia's territorial gains. Basically, it aims to freeze the situation, but it's not aimed at Ukraine. It's aimed at the global South. It's aimed at Europe in general. I don't think peace will break tomorrow.
And Tommy, what do you think? The Chinese peace plan when it comes to Russia, Ukraine, is it serious?
Well, I agree. It's a very serious proposal in the sense that it's serious in trying to present China as a responsible leader of the world and try to demonstrate to the global South they can stand up to the United States. But it's no surprise that it was accepted by Russia, because it parrots the Russian position, and therefore it will not fly. It has no chance whatsoever.
All right, we're going to get to the war in Ukraine, more on this topic just a second. But before the break, Tommy, I want to hear your thoughts. Nick said that he actually can envision a Cold War coming soon. Finish your thoughts.
Well, actually, Nick was talking about a hot war, not a Cold War. But I don't think that the parties will reach that point, even though Putin is playing a very dangerous game. But he was cautioned more than once, not directly, but very clearly, by President Xi, or if you recall, the visit of the German Chancellor to Beijing, and also after the meeting between Biden and Xi, there were clear statements about that leaders should not use or refer to nuclear weapons. So I think that talk should be left off the table. It's not even serious. I don't think. Well, clearly, not China and the United States do not want to reach a collision, a war or a hot war. And in that sense, the rivalry will continue. And I think that both sides will be cautious and careful not to bring out all-out war.
Nick, what do you think about that?
I think that from my perspective, Russia and China really serious about what they are saying, and the West is just trying to make of that a grotesque plan, and they just always trying with their hypocrisy, showing which behind the scenes interests has China and has Russia, but they don't really try to solve this conflict, and it makes me think, why? Who gains from this war more of all? Who the one that gain the most power, money, influence, and better geopolitical position because of this war? And the answer to this question, from my perspective, is the United States.
Tommy, I see you'd like to jump in there.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. At the end of the day, the West, or I would say actually the Atlantic Alliance, gained much more from this war because of Putin's mistakes. There's no doubt about that. On that, I agree. He wanted to weaken NATO. Instead, he got a very strong NATO and an even enlarged NATO. That was clearly mistakes and blunders that even President Xi did not expect him to do. But having said that, it doesn't mean that it's the United States' fault. The United States warned Putin repeatedly not to go ahead, not to invade. And Ukraine's inclusion in NATO at the time was not even on the table. It was a joke in that sense, being seriously raised that Ukraine is about to join NATO, not in the next decade, if at all. Actually, now it's more likely when the war ends. But there will not be an end to, but in that sense, the West is supporting Ukraine because if Putin wins in Ukraine, the next stop will be Georgia, perhaps other countries, perhaps other NATO countries. And therefore, the West is supporting Ukraine. Therefore, Israel should be a bit more steadfast in its support for Ukraine.
Alexander, let's get you in here. What do you think about these comments?
Yes, I want to add something about the Cold War. I agree with Tommy that it's a question of definition and we have to be careful. But I think if it's not a Cold War, if it's not a new Cold War, then it's definitely a close cousin. Because we have certain elements of the previous Cold War that repeat themselves. First of all, we have very clearly, and we started the program with this, an ideological competition that is obvious. We have we are at an early stage of bloc formation. We have possibly this new Cold War's first proxy war, just like we had in the old Cold Wars. You know, one very interesting thing that came from the press conference on March 7th of China's new foreign minister, Qin Gang, is that China would hold the first China Central Asian Summit. This is a new thing. And, you know, we see that Russia's position, for example, in Central Asia has been greatly weakened by this war. And, you know, someone is smelling blood and wants to take opportunity for this. So I do see certain elements that are similar to the previous Cold War, unfortunately.
All right, Nick, let's get back to you very quickly. So China wants to make itself as a peace broker, but President Xi hasn't even spoken to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, but reports say that discussions are in the works, underway to organize a call. No other really details at this time. What would that call even look like on Zelensky's end, talking to Xi, who is an ally of Putin?
I think Chinese president knows really well as Russian president, that the real boss, the real curator, and the one that they should talk to is Joe Biden, and not to President Zelensky, with all the respect, because Biden is the one that taking the shots, and he's the one that will decide what will happen in this war and how it will end. Okay, so that's why I think President of China will not speak with President of Ukraine, because it will not solve the problem. And it will not end the war. And the proposition for a peace plan that China gave, it was because nobody other did it. And nobody even tries to speak about peace. Everybody just speaks about more jets, more tanks, more bombs. Everybody's speaking about ideology. This is the war between democracy, autocracy. But this is not the real deal. It's all about money.
Gentlemen, I've got to end it there. Journalist Nick Kolohian, Alexander Pevsner, a lecturer on China, and Tommy Steiner, policy director at Signal. Thank you all so much for being with us today.